Breaking news coming in. Former Pakistani Foreign Minister Khurshid Mahmood Qasuri has made a startling claim in an interview to India today. Qasuri claims after 26/11, India planned airstrikes in Pakistan to target Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jamat Dawa in Muridke. Let's first listen in to that explosive interview.
You write in your book that towards the end of 2008, shortly after the 26/11 terrorist attack in Bombay, Senators McCain and Lindsey Graham invited you to lunch in Lahore. And at that lunch, they asked you, as a former foreign minister, how the Pakistan military and how Pakistan public opinion would respond if India carried out a targeted strike on Muridke, the headquarters of the LET and the Jamat Dawa.
And it was bipartisan. There was Richard Holbrooke also representing Obama administration.
Tell me that story quickly.
The quick story is that I was no longer foreign minister. I received a call from an American diplomat that so-and-so is coming. We'd like you to talk to him first and there's a quiet lunch. So before the lunch, we sat in a corner and Holbrooke was mum. He spoke on other issues but not on this, probably for purposes of plausible deniability as diplomats often do. The two were speaking, led by Senator McCain, who had been American presidential candidate against President Bush, and he says to me, well, we're asking you something in view of your experience as former foreign minister because you're of the army, and also since you're a civilian, you know the public reaction. Supposing, because we come from India, there's a lot of anger, supposing there's a limited strike on Muridke, the headquarters of Jamat Dawa. So I said, what do you mean? He said, supposing there's an aerial strike. I said, are you trying to prevent a war? He said, we think that that may well prevent a war. I said, here is my honest opinion. Pakistan Army will give a measured response. Within 5 minutes, it'll be measured. They will not go haywire. It'll be a measured, commensurate with the severity of the attack on Muridke. You give me an assurance that the Indian Army will then not react. And if they did, what would be the Pakistani reaction? So everything could spiral out of control. So I said, why are you asking me? Ask Pentagon to talk to GHQ directly. They said, we're asking you because you're a civilian and we want to know what the public response. I said, public response will be so great that Pakistan Army would be delegitimized in the eyes of its own people if it did not respond.
Two quick questions because we're running out of time. Did you get the feeling that Senators McCain and Graham were in a sense feeling the ground, sounding you out? Did you get the feeling that India was considering such an act and they were sounding you out in advance?
You see, I had a feeling that they had met people, because they're coming from Delhi. How can I believe they'd not met Prime Minister, Defense Minister, or maybe your military people, because the people of that level don't meet anybody lower. So I was absolutely certain that they talked to somebody very high in India. And it was my advice to them that if they did that, there would be a reaction. There's been war gaming, there's no secret. I've been part of it. And I gave them what I thought was the best advice, and I felt that it could actually lead to war, although they thought that might help prevent a war.
Senior editor Gaurav Sawant is now joining us with more details and a perspective into that explosive revelation made by Khurshid Mahmood Qasuri. Gaurav, was there ever a contemplation on part of India for surgical strikes in Pakistan after 26/11?
It's a part of a war game. Should there be a terror attack of the nature of 26/11, what would India's response be? Post 26/11, several options were on the table, not just attacking Lashkar-e-Taiba strongholds, but a punitive strike that would send a message. Pakistan's under the impression that India's talking about a symbolic strike. No, India is not talking about a symbolic strike either now or post 26/11. There was some talk of a surgical strike. But again, given the wargaming, what would Pakistan's response be? What would it lead to? From what my sources tell me, then government, then Prime Minister Manmohan Singh wasn't in favor of it. But if you recall, in 2001, after the Parliament attack, there was a very, very strong opinion in then government of India, Vajpayee's government, to carry out a surgical strike and to follow it up with a military offensive. And that is why you'd recall there was an Operation Parakram where the entire Indian army at that point of time was lined up along the line of control and the international border, but it did not escalate into anything going across. So there are war games, there are war plans. There's always an effort to find out what the other side is thinking and what will it lead to. there is a thinking that it will not lead to war, it will prevent war, and especially given the current ground realities, Pakistan's Air Force is severely degraded, Pakistan's army is severely degraded, so Pakistan's response, if at all, will be measured, but that it's just a war game, nothing beyond that just as yet.
And were the Americans sounding out Pakistan, or were they just testing the grounds to see how far the two countries would go? Gaurav, many thanks for joining us with that perspective.